Hello, I'm Joy Ella de Guzman, and I'm proud to be the Executive Director for Silayan Filipina National Organization. As we all know, the pandemic has changed the world for the time being. Having to be at home more, we've been cooking and learning new dishes to make with our families. As we celebrate this Christmas season, Silayan Filipina would like to share 4 of our favorite Filipino desserts for our Kain na Tayo cooking series to brighten up the holiday spirit. Our first chef of the day is 22-year-old Alyssa Ricasa. Born in Torrance, California of Filipino-American parents, Joyce Temporal and Tony Ricasa. 6 years ago, Alyssa was one of Silayan Filipina's original participants in our Karilagan Youth Leadership Program. She graduated from Nido High School, where she played varsity basketball and competed in the CIF Finals Championship. Alyssa earned her Associate of Arts degree at Southwestern College, was a member of Phi Theta Kappa Honor Society and the Bayan Filipino Club. She is currently a student at UCLA, where she will be completing her senior year. She's involved in various organizations on campus, including the Filipino Transfer Student Partnership, and is a proud member of Samahang Filipino. Today, Alyssa is going to share a classic recipe that has been in her family for generations, lemon-flavored pastillas. Alyssa makes this confectionery delight for her parents, her lolos and lolas, uncles and aunties and cousins as a tradition during the Christmas season. Pastillas, also known as pastillas de leche, translated as milk tablets, are soft milk-based confectionery candy with roots from the town of San Miguel in Bulacan, Philippines during the Spanish colonial times. Farmers boiled cows or carabao's milk and hardened it by evaporation, then incorporated it with sugar. Pastillas are so popular in the Philippines that there's an annual festival named after it, with many creative variations. I know it's one of my favorites, and now Alyssa will show you the process of how to make your own homemade pastillas. Let's follow along and enjoy her presentation. Kain na tayo!
Happy holidays, everyone! I'm Alyssa Ricasa, and I will be showing you how to make pastillas. So I first learned this from my Auntie Eva in our little cookbook for all of her family. So she passed it on to me, and so now I make them for the family holidays around Christmas time. So prep time, 10 minutes. The whole process is 2 hours. Get ready, let's go! If you don't have a mixer, it's fine. You can use a bowl and just mix it by hand. That's what I usually do, but this will be way easier, so thank you, Auntie. And over here, you'll need a pan, oven pan, measuring cup, teaspoons, and a roller. And then on to our ingredients that we will use for dessert. Okay, so here I will be using the Nido milk powder, and we'll be putting in 5 cups into this bowl. The next step is we're gonna get some sugar and put in 2 cups into the bowl with the milk powder. You can also go grab a butter knife or whatever utensil you want to use to if you want to have exact measurements like what I'm doing and scraping off the extra part. So since we already got the sugar and milk powder into the bowl, we're just going to mix it. I'm not using a blender right now, I just wanted to use a spoon since it's pretty easy to mix so far, but in the next part we'll probably use the blender because the texture is a little hard to mix by hand. Okay, next we're gonna grab the 2 cans of condensed milk and we're gonna pour it into the bowl. I'm just gonna grab my spoon, spread it a little in the middle so I can pour the condensed milk better when I mix it up with the blender. You could do this if you want, but you don't have to. If you want, you could also grab a spoon, get the extra condensed milk into the bowl. Also, the condensed milk that I use is Eagle brand, if anyone wants to use the same one that I'm doing.
So now we're just going to pour 3 teaspoons of lemon extract into the bowl. You honestly don't have to mix it with a spoon right away, like what I'm doing right now, but up to you. But you could honestly just use the blender right now that I'm using. So after you blend it, I'm going to be putting butter onto the pan. The texture of the dough is usually sticky and hard, so it'll be a little difficult when you're going to roll it, so you'll have to get an extra hand, probably a family member or friend to help you out when you're going to put on the pan. So as you can see, the dough is like a really hard texture right now, so I usually have to break it up a little bit, and I usually ask my dad to help me hold this pan, and I have to roll it, or vice versa, and it'll take a little while, so it's a lot of arm work. So how it's gonna look after you roll it, it'll be more flat and easier to roll. So after you're done rolling everything onto the pan, I usually use butter to put onto the knife to cut through easily of the pastillas. Probably like 2 to 3 inches of length, depending on how big you want your pastillas. Really up to you. So I just cut it all in the length. So I just added like an extra ingredient, like sprinkles. Since it's the holidays, I'm using red and green sprinkles because Christmas. You honestly don't have to do this, but I just wanted to be extra with like the way I want my pastillas to look, all cute and stuff. But you could just use sugar to coat it, honestly. So I'm just being a little extra with the sprinkles for the holidays to make it look all Christmassy. So the final product of how it looks, how I coated it with the sprinkles or with just sugar, how the pastillas look, it's like this. Merry Christmas. So I'm gonna be extra and start wrapping them. Now we're just gonna be extra and wrap them. So I'm just gonna be grabbing some tissue paper. You could grab whatever tissue paper, but since it's for the holidays or red and green for Christmas, I'm going to be cutting it in half. And then after I cut it in half, I'm just going to be, again, cutting it to fourths, which I will show you. I'll be cutting it into like squares, or like rectangular squares type of things. Depending on like how big or small your pastillas are, is how you'll be cutting them. So here I'm just going to be cutting into fourths. And how it'll look, I'll be cutting the edges after I cut it all. After cutting them all into fourths, I'm just going to grab my scissors again and cut little cuts, make little cuts on the edges of the papers. Because then after that, when you put the pastillas on top and start wrapping them, you're going to twist both ends, so it'll close up and it'll be all done.
Dulce Madamba Dallas, Silayan Filipina's assistant to the Director of Membership, was born and raised in Quirino, Isabela, Philippines, and immigrated to the United States in 1999. She is married to Eric Dallas and has a beautiful 17-year-old daughter, Alexis. Dulce is a registered nurse by profession and is currently employed by Sharp Healthcare. As part of her advocacy for financial literacy, she's an independent contractor for World Financial Group as a financial educator. Dulce is also an advocate for cervical cancer awareness as, by God's grace, survived it. Dulce loves to cook simple dishes. Patis is one of her favorite condiments. She learned to cook when she came to the United States. She developed a great passion for cooking, and it has served her well, even in times of stress. Dulce believes that life is short and precious, and we have to cherish it, enjoy it, and live life till its fullest. Dulce's mantra in life is always choose to be happy, to be grateful, not to get tired of being kind, and to forgive often. Cassava was one of the tropical root plants imported from Latin America through the Manila galleons from as early as the 1500s. Cassava cake is a type of babinka, traditional baked cakes, but using cassava instead of traditional galapan, ground glutinous rice batter. Cassava cake is a traditional Filipino moist cake made from grated cassava, coconut milk, egg whites, and condensed milk, with a custard layer on top. It's a popular dish in the Philippines, traditionally served for meriendas and Christmas season. So without further ado, I introduce to you Dulce Madamba Daos as she demonstrates how to prepare cassava cake.
Hi guys! Welcome to another episode of Silayan Filipina's Kain na Tayo Christmas episode. Today we are going to make a really delicious cassava cake. I'm excited and I hope you are too. Let's start. So here's our ingredients. For this recipe, I am using 2 packs of frozen grated cassava. I have 2 cans of evaporated milk, 2 cans of coconut milk, 2 cans of condensed milk, 3 eggs, softened butter. I'm going to be using 2 or 3 tablespoons of it. And I have makapuno coconut strings here. Now I am going to drain my frozen grated cassava to remove the excess liquid. So after draining the frozen cassava, now it's on a mixing bowl. Now we have to add all the rest of the ingredients. This is the coconut milk, condensed milk, evaporated milk, and the 3 eggs. Okay. Now all the ingredients are here. We just have to mix it thoroughly to make sure the eggs are broken. This is a pretty easy recipe because there's only few ingredients. It's easier to remember. You don't even have to make a list. What I do, the ratio that I use is 1 pack of grated cassava, the frozen one. I use 1 can of coconut milk, 1 can of condensed milk, and 1 can of evaporated milk. Okay, so as you can see, this is the consistency that you will be having. It's kind of like watery consistency. Now I will add my butter. Filipino way. 2, 3. So 3 tablespoons of butter is added. Now mix it. And lastly, I will be adding 1 bottle of makapunos drinks. This is an optional. You may or may not use it, so it's up to you. But on my recipe, I added to the whole mixture. So I poured my mixture into a greased pan, and now I'm ready to bake it in 350 degrees Fahrenheit for 45 to an hour. You just have to check it after 45 minutes. And next, we are going to make the toppings. Okay, so let's put these babies in the oven. All right. So while we're baking our cassava in the oven, now we are going to mix our toppings. Okay, so what we need is 1 cup of evaporated milk, and then let's put a cup of condensed milk, and 2 egg yolks. Whisk it. Whisk it until it's well blended. And again, it's optional. I'm gonna add coconut strings also when I pour it on top of the cassava. So there goes our topping. This is ready to be poured into the cassava cake after 45 minutes. So now we're ready to pour the topping after 45 minutes. Oh, I think maybe 50 minutes. And let's put it for another maybe good 15-20 minutes until the top is brown. Okay, almost done. Ooh, it's actually yummy. Here's our finished product. I hope you enjoyed cooking with us. Maligayang Pasko! Merry Christmas! Kain na tayo! Let's eat! Hello again. Today, Joyce Temporal Ricasa is going to share and demonstrate a classic family recipe from the Filipino dessert biko suman. But first, let me share the history and origins of this native favorite. Biko suman is a sweet rice cake originating from the Philippines, made with coconut milk, brown sugar, and sweet rice. It's usually topped with latik, which is fried coconut milk curd, coconut jam, cocoa jam, as a syrupy, caramel-like topping. Joyce will show you another variation that her mom taught her by baking the suman in a glass pan instead of wrapping it in banana leaves. Traditionally, it's placed over banana leaves in a winnowing basket called bilao. The origin of biko suman has its roots dating back to pre-colonial Philippines. While the exact origins are debatable, one can find a variation of this dish in almost any region or town in the Philippines. Biko suman is usually served during many social gatherings, such as meriendas, family birthday parties, town fiestas, New Year's Eve, and especially during Simbang Gabi. And now, let me share a little background about Joyce. Joyce Temporal Ricasa is an active Silayan Filipina member and currently serves as our Director of Activities and Events. Joyce is the daughter of Miguel and Sinaida Temporal from Nagua, Camarines Sur in the Bicol region. Born in Honolulu, Hawaii, Joyce moved with her family to San Diego Diego, where she grew up through high school. She attended California State University at Long Beach and worked for one of the largest public relations firms in California, as well as the communications firm in Los Angeles. Eventually, Joyce returned back to her hometown of San Diego to take care of her aging parents. Married for 24 years, Joyce and her husband Tony have one daughter, Alyssa, who we met earlier. Joyce is the former District Deputy Director for California State Senator Marty Blanc and served for 8 years during his service in the California State Legislature. She has over 20 years' experience in community service, politics, strategic communications, and public relations. Joyce is an avid bowler, has run marathons, loves to dance and cha-cha the night away to local bands and DJs. She enjoys recreating food dishes from recipes from her beloved late parents, passed on to her, and now she has passed these treasured recipes on to her daughter. Please welcome my dear Silayan Filipina sister, Joyce Temporal Ricasa.
Happy holidays! Hello, my name is Joyce Temporal Ricasa. I wanted to welcome you all to our home. This morning, I will share with you a family recipe, a Filipino dessert called bicol suman, also known as sweet rice or lati, which was passed down from my Lola, Grandma Apollonia, to my mom, Zenaida, and to me, and finally to my daughter, Alyssa. There are 4 ingredients here. First, we have pamana, sweet rice, and we need 5 cups of that. 1 12-ounce bottle of the coconut jam or coca jam. 13.5 ounces, 1 can of coconut milk, and in this case we're going to use the pamana light. And finally, we need 1 box of brown sugar or 16-ounce bag. So here I have the sweet rice. I'm going to pour 5 cups of the sweet rice now into the rice cooker. Make sure you rinse your sweet rice at least 3 to 5 times till the water is pretty much clear. So now we have 5 cups of the sweet rice in the rice cooker already. So now I want to add 5 cups of water. Now, since it's 5 cups of the sweet rice, you want to have, again, that 5 cups of water. But you want to add extra water because we want it to be a little softer when we bake it. So I added another 1.5 cup of water, okay? Or you can do like 1 cup too, you could try that out. While the rice is cooking, let's get back to the ingredients right now. The ingredients that you would need are listed in the video page as well. The prep time is 10 to 15 minutes, and to bake is 45 minutes. So I'm going to pour the coconut milk, and this is the light. And we have the 1 box of brown sugar. I'm going to add the coconut jam or coca jam, but we want to just add half, okay? So half the bottle. Okay, now we want to go ahead and stir this. We need to constantly stir this. Okay, until the sauce thickens, and I'd say about 8 to 10 minutes. And again, we want to have it at boiling first for a few minutes, and then we'll turn it down to medium low. until it thickens. So now it's boiling, okay? Make sure you're constantly stirring it, and we can finally turn it down to medium-low. And you're still constantly stirring the sauce for about another 4 minutes. Okay, this is done now. It's been cooking for about 8 minutes now. So we can turn it off, and we're gonna go ahead and remove from the heat and set it aside. So after the rice is cooked, we're gonna go ahead and place it into the bowl. So see, the rice is sticky, and that's how we want it because of the extra water. And again, this is very hot. So we want to wear the stove mittens just in case, because this bowl is hot. So now I'm gonna go ahead and pour the sauce ingredients from the saucepan into a large bowl. Okay, so here we go. And once again, this is very hot, so please make sure set that aside and have your mittens on. So after the rice is mixed into the bowl, we want to pour the rice mixture into a 13 by 9 glass pan right here. So I'm going to go ahead and actually pour it in. And we're going to go ahead and pat this down so it's even. And again, you know, you can use any glass pan really. It depends how big your party is, so you just have to add more to your ingredients, okay? But in this case, this is a 13.9. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and preheat the oven to 350 degrees, and we'll bake it for 45 minutes. Okay, so now remember I have the half of a bottle of the coconut jam. I want to go ahead and mix, actually add this to the top. Okay. And we want to go ahead and spread this for the topping. This part is the tricky part because you would think that you want to warm it in the saucepan, but you don't want, because it needs to be room temperature so that you could spread it all over, and then you're going to be baking it for 45 minutes. So okay, so this is pretty much done, and now we're going to place it. I want to spread that. We want to go ahead and place it in the oven now. We'll bake for about 45 minutes. Okay, so now we just took it out of the oven. It's done. And now we're just going to have to wait for it to cool, probably for 30 minutes or more. Now that the suman is cool, we're going to go ahead now and cut some pieces. This is 24 servings. for coming into our home. I hope you enjoy the Suma. Stay safe and healthy during the holidays. Peace, love, joy, and blessings to all of you. Maligayang Pasko!
Mary Chris Pulutzian, our Silayan secretary, was born in Dagupan City, a province in Pangasinan. She was delivered by her great-uncle, Dr. Mateo Aguirre. A unique note of Mary Chris's history is that although she was born in the Philippines, she was considered American born abroad as her father was born in San Francisco, California, and was later raised in the Philippines before World War II. Mary Chris is the oldest of 4 children and the only daughter. She's been married to her husband Dan for 22 years. Mary Chris is most passionate about her faith in and her personal relationship with God, and it is her great desire to leave an indelible mark of God's handprint of love on those she meets. She has a big heart that overflows with love, compassion, and concern for others. Mary Chris learned the art and love of baking from her grandmother, mother, and auntie. In love for baking, where one can taste and see the goodness and love poured in, Mary Chris can take a recipe and bring a whole new dimension of depth and textures and flavors to it. Brazo de Mercedes is a traditional Filipino roll made from meringue and is basically gluten-free. It does not contain any flour. The meringue is made from egg whites, cream of tartar, and granulated sugar. Simply translated as Mercedes arm, it actually means Arm of Our Lady of Mercy in Spanish, a common devotional title for Mary, the mother of Jesus. The dessert dates back to the Spanish colonial period and believed to have been the result of the repurposing of discarded egg yolks from the use of egg whites for mortar and plaster in the Spanish colonial architecture. So without further ado, I present to you Mary Chris Pulutzian, her featured dish inspired by her auntie Goody, who is well known for her family specialty dessert, Brazo de Mercedes.
Hi, welcome to Kain na tayo. My name is Mary Chris Pulutzian. I am the board secretary for Silayan Filipina, and I'm here to feature one of my favorite Filipino dishes, desserts actually, is Brazo de Mercedes. This particular dessert is made by my auntie Goody, who is made famous by her Brazo de Mercedes recipe. What I love about this dessert is that not only is it light and airy, it's very rich and filling at the same time. It is essentially a meringue roll with a custard filling. So let me introduce you to the main characters in this wonderful dessert. So let me break it down into 2. We have 10 egg yolks, which I will take and add with condensed milk. We'll have the lemon and the vanilla, which make up the custard. Now for the meringue roll, we'll have the 10 egg whites mixed with the cream of tartar and the sugar. So let's begin. We'll first start with separating the egg yolks from the whites. You want to make sure that when you separate the eggs, make sure that the egg whites are not contaminated by the egg yolk. This will affect the ability to have a good light and airy meringue. So just be very careful as you separate, because sometimes the egg shell may perforate the yolk, and that tends to cause some of the egg yolk to get mixed in. So there we have the egg yolk. We'll put the right there in the bowl for the custard. So we'll just continue separating each of these 10 eggs. So we've separated our yolks from the egg whites. Now I wanted to give you a couple of tips in regards to the custard. When you make sure you're separating the egg whites from the egg yolks, I would recommend, if you possible, have a strainer that has large enough holes where the egg yolks can strain from the egg whites. The reason being is that you want to make sure you get as much of the egg whites very cleanly without any egg yolks contaminating the egg whites. So now that we have all our egg yolks, let's go ahead and commence on starting the custard. So here we are. We're going to go ahead and start working on the custard portion of our Brazo de Mercedes. So I have a bowl with the 10 egg yolks. We'll go ahead and put it on top of the saucepan. You'll see that there's a good amount of water in the saucepan. So, as I said before, this is going to be a bit time consuming. So you want to make sure you have a good amount of water at the bottom of your pot, because as you go along and you're stirring the custard mixture together, the water can evaporate, and what you don't want to happen is that it burns your pot. So make sure you have a fairly good amount of water at the bottom of your pot. Okay, so now we're going to take our can of condensed milk, add it into the bowl. Make sure you get all that good condensed milk out of your can into the bowl. So now that we have that in there, we're going to go ahead and start the heating process. You want it on a fairly medium high or medium heat. And then you start to whisk. You want to make sure that the egg yolk is completely combined with the condensed milk. And you basically just go ahead and whisk vigorously. Well, finally, after 45 minutes of whisking, as you can see, the custard mixture has thickened and decreased in size. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the vanilla to the mixture, like so. Whisk that in very thoroughly. Make sure it's incorporated well. You'll see the vanilla specks mixed in. You see how wonderful that is? Thick ribbon. So now that's in. Now, because of the thickness of this, the consistency of this custard, it'll tend to be very sweet. So at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a few drops of lemon juice. Now, lemon juice is what cuts the sweetness, so it doesn't taste too sweet, and it actually gives it a nice mellow flavor. So you still have a bit of that sweetness in there, but it's not over the edge. So this is what it should look like. Now, once I have this all mixed together, I'm going to take this bowl, turn it off the stove, and we're going to put it in a bowl. So let's go ahead and pour this into this bowl. We want to get it in there while it's still warm. See all that rich custard? So as you can see how thick this turned out, as we put it in the refrigerator to let it cool, it'll hopefully have the consistency of a pudding-like texture. So now that we have the mixture in the bowl, you want to make sure to cover it quickly with some plastic wrap. And when you put it onto the bowl, make sure that the plastic wrap is in contact with the surface of the custard. This way it doesn't create a film on the custard. So you make sure you put it in like so, and you're ready to put it in the refrigerator for a couple hours. Okay? So let's go ahead and get this chilled, and then we'll work on the meringue part for the cake. So now that we've completed the custard portion, we're now moving on to the meringue. So here we have the 10 egg whites that we've separated from the yolks. We're going to beat this on high. We're also going to add the cream of tartar, and 3/4 cup of sugar. Then we're going to beat it on high. At this point, you want to check and see to make sure if it has reached a soft peak. And how you do that is you take this out and you check to see. And if you can see that there is still a bit of foam and soft, it's reached the soft peak. So at this point, you're going to increase the speed and make sure that you whip it until you get to hard stiff peak. So now we're going to check to see if it's at stiff peaks. A good way of telling if you do reach the stiff peaks consistency is when you're able to pour the pot upside down, and if there's no droppage, then you're at the stiff peak stage. See? So now that we're done, we're going to go ahead and pour this out onto a buttered baking jelly roll pan. So now we're going to turn out this foamy meringue onto a baking pan. You want to make sure you pour it all out so that way, look how nice and fluffy that turned out. So you're going to spread it out evenly. And just to let you know, I buttered the pan before I put the parchment paper on here. And then once I put the parchment paper, then I also buttered the top of the parchment pan, because as this bakes, you're going to notice it's going to rise. It's going to be a little bit of a sticky attached to the pan, and you want to make sure that when you're done, you want to be able to peel it off from the pan safely without any breakage or stickage. So that's the purpose of making sure that you grease both the bottom of the pan, and also when you put the parchment paper, you butter that too. So once this is all spread evenly, you want to make it as smooth as possible without disturbing the aeration of the meringue. Then you will bake it at 350 for about 20 minutes. And you'll be able to see that it will rise. And you'll also see that it turns into a golden brown color when it's done. So when you spread this, try to be as even as possible so that when it bakes in the oven, it will be even as well. If it pops up in certain places, don't worry. It'll still turn out good, but you'll just notice how amazing this turns out to be. The cake, very, very impressive. Once you're through with this, you'll be surprised. Ideally, if you have an offset spatula, that would really help you when it comes to spreading, to make sure that you're getting a good level. Okay, and here we go. And let's go ahead and put this in the oven. 350 degrees. Center of the oven. And we put it for 20 minutes. As you can see, it has risen. So we'll go ahead and take that out and take it so gently out of the oven. Okay, so we're going to let this cool for, I'd say, about 10-15 minutes. Once it's cool, then we're going to turn it over. So let's give it some time and we'll connect back in a few minutes. Well, everybody, we're ready to roll. Can you believe that? Pun intended. So here we are. We have the meringue roll ready to go. So what I'm going to do, because I need to flip it over. So I take parchment paper that I've already buttered, and then I'm going to face it butter side down because I need to flip this over. And like so. Voila. Now we have the roll ready to unveil from the parchment paper. Let's carefully take it apart. There we go. And we have our custard, which firmed up very nicely. I'll show you that. See how thick that looks? So this chilled in the refrigerator for about, oh, I'd say a couple hours. So we are going to spread it evenly on the side. And it'll be very thick. See that? That's the consistency you want. And like I said, it's better if we have an offset spatula. So here we are spreading the custard evenly as possible. And once you've completed covering all the major areas of the roll, we are going to attempt to roll it so that it becomes the actual brazo de Mercedes. So just gently roll a little at a time and release. And as you finish, you end up with this perfectly rolled brazo de Mercedes. So we're going to go ahead and put it on a plate. And voila! You have your brazo de Mercedes. So what we do is that, I know it's kind of rough on the edges, so what we'll do is we'll cut off the ends. And that's how you can present it with a clean edge. But if you like it this way, you can keep it rustic. You can do that too. Okay, so here we are, ready to slice. Our first slice. So you can make it as thick as you want. Let's try this. And you should be able to see that golden custard filling in the middle. There you go. So let's take a bite. And this would actually be perfect with coffee. So if you have some coffee, this makes a perfect dessert. It's so light. See how fluffy it is? Let's take a taste, shall we? Look how airy that looks. Take a little bit of the custard. Look how sweet and thick. Merry Christmas, everybody. Make sure you make some of this and enjoy.
We hope you enjoyed watching this episode of our online series. Stay tuned for more Silayan Filipina videos in the future. Just hit the subscribe button down below to be notified when new videos are published. Thank you, and we hope you join us again soon.